strong, empowered, authentic.
What's up, Ginger Nation? This is Tosh.
This is Darren, and you are listening to the Authentic
Ginger Podcast. Welcome, Ginger Nation, to the Authentic Ginger Podcast. I'm Tosh Taylor.
And I'm Darren Roach. And Tosh, I'm excited to have our guest on today. You know why?
Tell me.
I'll tell you why. Because we have PEI singer-songwriter, lover of Gaelic song, which I can't wait to talk about, the wonderful Patricia Murray. Welcome to the show, Patricia. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me. This is a true pleasure. If I can tell you how many podcasts I listen to in a day, you would wonder, what else do I do? When do I have time to sing? Because I love podcasts, and so when you contacted me, I'm like, yes. I don't care what we're going to talk about. I am there.
Well,
here.
It's
ready?
interesting you should say, because we are going to talk about something really interesting.
Yeah.
Tosh is going to ask you that first question, which I love, because it kind of kicks off the podcast. We have some fun with it. And you're in an interesting situation today, so we should dive right into that, Tosh.
We will start off by saying you're not our first unauthentic redhead.
That's right.
But those people were on for different reasons. Today, we're going to talk about you not being an authentic redhead, but you masquerade as one.
Well, that's it. Like, there is a deep sense of imposter syndrome happening right now, because when you asked me, and I hadn't read like what podcast it was, and I was like, yes, I'll do it. And then I read Authentic Ginger, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah. I did get a message that said, I'm not an authentic redhead.
know.
And I said, oh, that's okay.
Yeah. So, but we will tell people that you have fooled so many people.
Yeah,
they wouldn't know.
Well, listen, my second child, Fiona, I had her at the IWK in Halifax, and the nurse came with her bundle, and she walked over to me, and she said, wouldn't it be fabulous if Fiona here has red hair like yours? And I said, it would be fabulous, and it would be a freaking miracle if she does.
Yeah.
There may be questions.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know.
That's right.
There may be questions.
That's right.
But you don't just dye your hair red. Yet you've got green eyes. You've got ginger skin. You must carry the gene.
I am from Prince Edward Island.
Boom.
So, right?
See, there you go.
Growing up, like reading and, everywhere you go in Prince Edward Island, there's a touch of Anne of Green Gables. And
right down to the dirt.
Well, exactly. So, and it being as, young girl, I'm like, who wouldn't want to have red hair like Anne of Green Gables? I mean, she was independent. Mm-hmm. She was passionate. She was loyal. She was, what a young girl would want to be kind of thing. And so, I don't know if maybe that's a little part of it too, that I just love red hair. And so I've since I've been old enough to dye, I've had a little bit of tinge of red in my hair.
That was my next question. When did you start?
Oh, gosh. Well, this is kind of funny. So my best friend and I, Laurie Gillis, who is a ginger as well, she and I were on a reality television show.
No way.
Called The Makeover Story, which was on the TLC channel. This was many years ago. And it was probably one of the first reality shows. And we were living in Halifax. And I had just got a nomination for an East Coast Music Award for my album.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And and so we had a full makeover, because she was my manager at the time, and we were at our home, like in the pandemic, and we were in our overalls and looking, really not great, and we had to get ready for the ECMAs. So we had this film crew from Chicago come and take us all around Halifax, and they dyed my hair, no word of a lie, Fire Engine Red.
No
That was the name that was on the
oh my gosh,
the package or whatever.
What?
And so so I think since then I was like, I love this, and it was great. Yeah,
and it's gonna stick.
It's gonna stick. Yeah.
Well, you fooled me for many, many years.
Well,
because,
thank you. Good. I'm gonna have to tell my hairdresser. Actually, you know what? I texted my hairdresser after you said it. I was like, "You are doing an amazing job." I just want to say.
I fooled them. I'm on the podcast.
Yeah. But there isn't a lot of hairdressers that can pull it off.
No, that's right. It can get a little. It just looks fake, right?
Right. Yeah. It becomes like the Fire Engine Red.
Yes.
And then it's fake. It's funny. You live in Riverview now,
yes,
which is where I also live. But there's a girlfriend of mine, and we have been friends for 10 years. Okay. Let's say our kids are 10. same thing. I thought she was an authentic ginger, and my husband grew up here, so he grew up with her. And I said something about Lara being a redhead, and he went, she's Italian. I was like, what? No, I only know her married last name. He's like, she's Italian. She's not a redhead. I had no idea. You might have the same hairdresser.
Okay, we might. I'll have to. I'll touch base with her.
Yeah.
So, do you find you burn, from the sun? Like, I mean, are you carrying on the characteristics even though you're not an authentic redhead?
Seriously,
You must.
I am authentic all the way.
Yeah,
like
see, there you go.
I burn in areas. Like I don't.
That's okay.
I remember I went up to Miramichi and did that. Where you do the floating down the river for 3 hours.
Yes.
I was so red after that. People would stop, like my legs, because the sun and water, and people stop onto the street going, "Oh my God!" Like they were just so upset for me because I looked like I should have been in the hospital because it was so red. And I have burned all my life, and my kids are like that too. And we just have to be really careful. Yeah,
That's amazing. Sensitive to pain.
Sensitive to pain.
I'm going to go through some of the lists here of the.
You know what? I've had 3 kids. You know what? And I think I can handle pain.
See,
that's something.
That's my thing. They say that redheads are like highly sensitive to pain. I'm the opposite. I can handle a ridiculous amount of pain.
Okay.
So I think that we've debunked that.
We
feel like we have over
Okay.
30 episodes.
Yeah, we have.
I feel like we've debunked that one. There's got to be some, obviously, that are,
right.
but
Majority.
Like, my brother's a ginger, and I remember watching him pour boiling water on his hand, like by accident, but he barely flinched.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, there's something wrong with us.
Yes.
That's not right.
So the other question though is, Patricia, are you stopped on the street like other redheads would be and say, "Oh my God, I love your hair"?
Absolutely.
So that happens
the time.
all the time. Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. And
They
do you go with it, or do you just say,
"Oh
you
yeah,
know what,
I
darling?
mean,
No, I'm not."
Yeah. No, unless we're getting into it. Like if I'm going to like continue a relationship with them, then I will.
You have to come
But if
clean.
it's just on the side of the road, I'm like, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I have a really great hairdresser.
And I said nothing to the nurse too at the IWK, and I was like, yeah, that would be amazing if Fiona has red hair.
Especially with a name like Fiona, it would be very fitting.
Exactly.
It would be.
Yep.
Do you find any other like redhead culture things that you would identify with? The fact that you are an artist on stage.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of redheads, we like attention because we get attention, we get used to it. We, are always have been portrayed as the joker, the funny sidekick friend.
Yes,
whatever,
I'm the
right?
storyteller. Like I'm always the one that's like, oh, like here's the big story that I'm going to tell, and try to make people laugh, and then performing. Although there's a part of me that's really shy as well, that would rather just stay at home and read.
Which is why you're a performer.
Yeah. And so exactly. So it's almost like you're playing a part, right? When you get up on the stage, and you are a musician or a storyteller or that kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely identify.
With your music is storytelling.
Absolutely. All the way through. I mean, especially when I'm singing the Gaelic songs, like I really try to make a point of explaining perhaps what the translation is or who wrote the song or why they wrote the song. And because people connect to the sound of the language, but if you just give them just even a little extra story about it, they connect to the language more or to the song as well. So. And
for those listening that aren't really familiar with the Gaelic language, is there an explanation behind what it is, and how would you describe the language? Like how would I understand, if there's a way to understand it, if you were to tell it to me as in a way of, this is what the Gaelic language is and this is what it's all about. Okay. Is there a way to
Well, obviously, the language that I have learned is the Scottish Gaelic, and so it originates from the Gaels, from the Highlands and Islands in Scotland. But then when the immigrants, so my ancestors, when they came over, they landed in Prince Edward Island, and they spoke Gaelic. Like I have a Gaelic Bible at home, but when it came to my generation, when I first started learning, I had no idea what Gaelic was.
Lost, wasn't it?
It was lost. Yeah. Definitely. I heard about how my great grandparents would talk to each other in Gaelic when they didn't want anybody else to know what was going on, and you hear that a lot. But it's unfortunate it was not curated or wasn't encouraged for like my parents' generation, and so that's the draw to me. It's a community, it's a connection to I guess my roots, right. and just the musicality of the language. I think it just lends so well to these songs. Like I was going to say, I said Jenna's mom here, and I remember hearing somebody in Cape Breton speaking. They were speaking English, but there's a strong connection obviously to Scottish Gaelic there, and they said, "Well, how are you today?" Yeah. And do you hear that sort of that inflection? Well, yeah. How are you doing today? That directly comes from the Gaelic language, because it's a very musical.
It's a sing-songy.
There's that. How are you doing today?
Oh,
and
interesting.
You can still hear, for those, even if they're not speaking that language.
Yeah.
You can still hear the music or the flow of the language in people even to today.
Very cool.
What's up, Ginger Nation? If you're looking for authentic ginger swag, go to www.authenticginger.com. Use code AGPodcast for 20% off your next purchase.
Yeah.
That's a great way to describe it, because I can see that and I can hear that.
The musicality of it.
Yeah. I can totally hear it when you explain it like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Especially with you being down in Nova Scotia, you're closer to it.
Yep.
Pardon my ignorance, but what's the difference between Scottish Gaelic and Irish?
Well, originally they were both the same language.
Okay.
And it's just more of, when started in Ireland and then they moved over to Scotland, and then it's almost like I wouldn't say not a dialect, because that's not what they'd say, okay. But it evolved into, like, they both came from the same languages, but someone from Scotland who speaks Gaelic would have a hard time having a conversation with somebody in Ireland who's speaking Gaelic. There's a lot of similar words, but the structure of the whatever phrases, sentences are a bit different.
Okay.
But it's almost like, when we say like someone from who speaks Acadian French, and then Quebecois, or then French,
that was
French.
exactly where my brain was going.
I think that's, to kind of give, it's obviously not that black and white, but just to give you a sense of, that the language has evolved, and that and then now in Cape Breton, that there's, a lot of people say that the Gaelic that is spoken there is very much like the original Scottish Gaelic that they would have spoken when they first emigrated to Cape Breton, because it has not as evolved as it has in Scotland. Again, I'm just trying to give you an idea of kind of where it.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you grow up with it in your house, like you said, it kind of skipped your parents' generation, right? So
I first became involved, or heard about it, or became interested in it when a bagpiping school opened up in my hometown in Summerside. It's called the College of Piping. Many people thought it was a plumbing school, and nope. People were calling in, getting their toilets fixed. But no, they taught Highland bagpiping, Highland dancing, fiddle, step dance, and then they started teaching a little bit of Gaelic song.
It's amazing.
So that's how I became interested, and then I through Scott McCauley, who was the director at that time, he gave me names of all these wonderful Gaelic singers in Scotland. So I backpacked over to Scotland met with Christine Primrose, who's on the Isle of Skye, and Finlay McNeil in Inverness. And then I ended up competing in, again, it's amazing when I think now, like the boldness of youth, right? I've got my backpack, and I'm like, oh, there's this thing called the Royal National Gaelic Mod, and it's a Gaelic singing competition, and it's very well established. It's been, I forget how many years, travels to all the Gaelic communities in Scotland. And I was like, hey, I'm going to be there. I should sing in that.
And sure.
Yeah. Oh. And I had like my shorts and my T-shirts, and I had to borrow someone's kilt and a white shirt, because that's what you're supposed to. Like, it's very, very traditional. Anyway, I ended up winning in my category.
No,
I know, I was all by myself.
Oh my heavens!
I remember calling. They were like, "What?" So yeah, I have the silver pendant. So they have the gold medal and the silver pendant. Gold medal is for the native Gaelic speakers, and then the silver pendant is for those that have Gaelic, as a second. They have learned it, learners of Gaelic. So yeah.
That's amazing.
19 years old, and that was
19.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
cool.
and would that be the start of your music career, or would you go before that?
Yeah, a little bit before that. I was
Yeah.
performing with the College of Piping had put on several recordings, so I had learned some songs, some Gaelic songs, and some sort of traditional songs. But it kind of once I started learning these Gaelic songs, and then this happened, like in terms of winning, I started taking Gaelic. I took Celtic Studies from the U of T, University of Toronto, and then when I moved back down to Halifax, I was taking Gaelic lessons from Lewis McKinnon, who's a well-known Gaelic educator and poet, I even now as I'm older, I've a little bit busier and that kind of thing, haven't been able to keep up my my Gaelic as much as I'd love to. However, over the pandemic, there's a wonderful singer. She's originally from the Isle of Barra, Cathy Ann McPhee, and she and I did FaceTime with each other, and she taught me some Gaelic songs over the pandemic. So at least I'm trying to keep it up. But I when I was sort of in my, I guess it was my mid to late 20s, I did go to a Gaelic college on the Isle of Skye called Salmorsteig and did an immersion course there. But it's like any language, if you are not immersed in it, if you're not speaking it and hearing it and thinking it, you lose it really quickly.
Right.
So my connection now is through the songs. Yeah.
When you did start dipping your toe into it, were your grandparents around to see it?
Yes.
Wow.
And they were, and my grandfather, Lloyd Murray, he only had two phrases, Kim na hashiv and Hagama. Like those were the two.
Okay.
So Kim na hashiv is like, how are you doing? And then Hagama was like, I'm fine, I'm doing well. And those were the only things that he remembered from his grandparents. So it felt really great. It felt good to kind of be able to rekindle maybe his interest in it as well. Yeah.
So we're here at the Moncton Highland Games. You're performing most of the weekend here. I think you just told me before we started the show. Let our audience know what they can expect for your shows this weekend.
Right. Well, it's going to be a combination of Gaelic songs and traditional songs, and maybe a few modern sort of Celtic songs, like sort of modern singer-songwriters. I've written a song myself that I'll be performing.
Great.
But yeah, and I'm joined by Stacey Reed on the fiddle, who's a well-known fiddle player here in the area, and Mathieu Breu, who is an amazing guitar player from Birachois. And then my husband, Michael McNeil, is going to play the small pipes, the Scottish small pipes, and a couple of songs as well. So it's great. I'm really excited because this is kind of my first official live show since the pandemic. I've done a lot of online things, but this is the first one where there'll be people out in the audience listening. So it's exciting.
I read that you started singing in a church.
Yes,
that's where you got your start. Was that in PEI? Was that in Prince Edward Island?
Yes and no. I was born in PEI. We moved over to just outside of St. John, so I went to a church there. But Summerside Presbyterian Church. That's where I sort of started to sing quite a lot, kind of thing.
And when did you record your first album? Because I mean you've been around the scene for a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Careful.
I know, and that's why I'm saying a little bit.
Treading lightly.
So
no, for sure.
People across Nova Scotia and Canada know who you are. Like how when you got started.
Yeah.
When that first album was coming out, like, did you know you'd have a career in music? Was it something you were going for?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I first started, I had been singing all my life in choirs and church and, doing solos. I've sung at so many weddings and funerals. I love going home to PEI because they're like, you sang at my wedding. And I'm like, yes, I did. That was a while ago. But then, once the College of Piping, they sparked that interest of like, oh, wow, like there is some real amazing history. And then I kind of have this connection to it, which I had no idea. And so that's what drove me to researching, the songs and just knowing a little bit more about the history of not only what happened over like Scotland and Ireland and Wales, but also what happened here in North America too. A lot of the immigrants that came over and who were creative when they got here, either because they were missing home or they wanted to speak about what was happening to them when they came to the New World, I guess. So yeah, my first album was 1998.
1998.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, that was.
It feels like that wasn't that long ago.
No.
But then when you start doing the math,
I know.
It's like,
Let's not. Let's not do the math.
And more records after that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
do you find that when you're performing, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just a sap, but any form of Scottish music and even Gaelic, and I can't understand it, but I get emotional listening to it. Do you have a hard time sometimes performing?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I get very emotional. I really try to kind of, block it out a little bit. So I used to host these ceilidhs at the College of Piping during the summertime, and we would get so many tourists that would come up, and this one fellow came, and he wanted to propose to his wife on stage during our ceilidh, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And he did, and he had this beautiful story. She was his nurse. He had been in a coma. Like, it was a lot. Yeah. And I said, well, I'm going to sing a song afterwards, just to kind of like, once she says yes, then we'll... And I remember just going, like, I was losing it. Like, my tears coming down. Like, I was a mess. And I was like thinking, pull yourself together. This is their moment. And I was a puddle on the floor because it was just so moving. But also, there's so many Gaelic songs or traditional songs that have such a longing to them, right? A lot of it had to do with that a lot of these people were missing their home, had to leave because either they were forced or they, wanted something different or wanted something more. They were, drawn to the new world. So there's so much longing in the melody and the words. So I think a lot of people connect with that.
Yeah, they're haunting.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And there's a lot, Scottish people are very passionate, and there's a lot, if they are done wrong, they'll have 15 verses to work through it.
That's right.
And so it's, they're very passionate people, and it's, I love the music. I love the culture. Yeah.
Will you sing? Just a little?
Yes,
not all 15 verses.
Well,
but.
It's so funny. So again, I was trying to think of a song, and I haven't sung it for a while, so that's why I've got it on a photo here, so I can remember the words.
Yeah, for sure.
This, I wanted to find, because there are so many Gaelic songs that have ruag, or ruai, which translates to red. That means red. And oftentimes, it was a way to describe, like someone's hair, like Ian Ruai, which is the name of the song I'm going to sing. So he was Ian with the red hair. And so as you can imagine, there's a lot of redheads in Scotland, so there's a lot of songs that have used that word or associated with Scotland. So this one, unfortunately, it's a lament. It's called Turug Ian Ruai, and it's the lament for Ian with the red hair. It comes from the Isle of Lewis, and I learned this in Toronto from Rhoda McCritchie, great singer from Harris, and this was one of the songs I actually ended up singing at the National Mod, like when I did that competition.
Right. Oh, cool.
So it's been a while since I've sung it. I won't sing all of it, but basically it is one of those. This woman has lost Ian. He was killed in a battle, and so basically she is saying, your death has lost me the sun in the sky. Your death has snatched away all my joy. And so it basically is just like, it's a lament. And so I thought, okay, I'll do that. It's Ian the Red. So here we go.
Very nice.
Huguyim sagrian sun sped Falilio hugoroe Spianu asam morn maclave Falilo hugoroe Yalmogra Konshi dasro Kodach rivach shedanor Yalemire splastak bjal Skadam klart agus yasorein Who William Sagrian san spell Falilio go away Spiano asam morn maclave Falilio go away Shinakti.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is.
Thank you so much. That's the first. That is a first.
That's a big moment.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. Do you find that learning the language was easier because you're a singer? Do you think
I definitely, when I first learned the Gaelic, I learned it by ear. I learned it by phonetics or by the sound of it. And then once I was like, okay, I'm going to be doing this, I need to understand what I'm singing.
Right.
So that's when I went and started taking a Gaelic language courses. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Are you okay?
I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
I'm still trying to process this. Yeah.
I said I'm the one that gets emotional.
Yeah.
Like after all this, can I be like maybe an honorary authentic ginger?
I say we let her in.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. He's not a redhead
100%.
either.
Yeah,
So
I'm
it's
not a
okay.
redhead.
Yeah,
I
it's just me.
I just grew 4 of them. Oh, I didn't. My wife did, but you know. Gotta be careful.
Yeah. Watch yourself. That was incredible. Thank you so much, and thanks for wanting to even be on the show. And also on behalf of all gingers, thank you for wanting to be a ginger.
Thank you.
And also, I'd like to know where we can follow you at online.
Yeah, well, I'm on Spotify and iTunes. 2 of my albums are on there, and then also on Instagram at Patricia Murray PEI.
Okay, Patricia Murray PEI. Right?
All one.
Instagram, all one.
Yep.
And then on all the music channels online, it's Patricia Murray. Just look that up and you're going to find you.
Yep.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us
Not
here.
at
I
all.
really appreciate it. It's been wonderful here today.
Thanks.
And you've been listening to the Authentic Ginger Podcast.
You've been listening to the Authentic Ginger Podcast.
Become a part of the Ginger Nation by liking, subscribing, following, and leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This podcast was produced by Tosh Taylor of the Podcast Hub Productions. Find her online at podcasthub.ca.